Welcome to Vicious Whispers with Mark Tullius, your source for horror, sci-fi, suspense, and all things violent.
Thank you so much for joining me today on Vicious Whispers with Mark Tullius. At the end of the episode, we'll play a short story from Twisted Reunion. This week's story is The Infidel's Prayer. Hope you guys dig that one. Stick around for that. And I don't think we'll have too long of an episode. I usually want to do the podcast kind of fast on Thursdays, because then I also have to do the newsletter by the morning and then homeschool and all the fun stuff that comes along with the day, like cleaning and cooking and that's the kind of stuff I remember when I get back from vacations. Well, this wasn't even really a vacation, but my son and I just got back from AuthorCon 4. It was in St. Louis. It was pretty cool. We got there Thursday night. The entire time on the plane, I was working like crazy on trying to time the Tournament of Mortem. So it was a 4-hour flight. I think I was writing for 3 hours and 45 minutes. It was pretty much all the time. And it was awesome because I just kind of forced myself to do it. I knocked out 4 chapters. And it got Wes super motivated to have a chapter at a time. So he's already done the first 2 chapters. Those are all really clean. We'll still rework it again when we get through the end of the book, but it's solid enough to say, okay, that chapter is good for now. Now we're moving through 3, 4, and 5. But yeah, that's all I was doing on the plane right there. Then in the hotel when my son was doing other stuff, I would just be inputting all my notes. And then at the table when it was slow, that's what I was doing. I was working on my editing stuff. Either I was working on rewriting Angel's Escaping the Cult. We were really close to finishing that. Or I was working on my son's book, Trying to Die in a Video Game. Or I was working on the Trying to Die in the Tournament of Mortem. So I had something going at all times. Very busy. Even in the mornings, I would wake up pretty early and I'd get an hour or 2 before going to the convention. So the convention was cool. It was great to see Jay Bauer, John Lynch. I really didn't get around to talk to too many people though, because I was sitting at my table really trying to work. I was taking advantage of that time, any slow times, and just getting a lot of stuff done. So felt pretty good about it. The whole plane ride home was awesome. That one, I was working on Trying to Die in a Video Game. I got a lot done on that. I still have to clear it with my boss, my son. But yeah, I really like how that's developing. We're hoping to have that. Our date for that is July 2025. So the goal is to have that finished up. I think we will do it. Tournament of Mortem, we were thinking maybe March, but with the speed we're going right now, maybe it'll be a little bit earlier. Oh, I did talk to Jay Bauer and we talked about the perfect release date. And so we are shooting for March of 2025. He should have that one to me soon, which would be great timing because I'm just finishing up with Angels and there's always some. But it's all right. It's at the Meadow Spire Mall. Comes out on the 29th. Just hired someone to do a map, a cool floor plan of the mall for the start of the book. Extra expense, but they'll make the book that much cooler. So why not do it? So that's pretty awesome. And then, so that's going to be October 29th. And then I decided for the next 2 books, for books 12 and 13, I'm just going to release them on the same day, right before Thanksgiving. One will be Trying to Die in the Shadowlands. I mean, and all this may change, depending on whatever circumstances. But this is what I'm planning. So we'll release both of those the same day, the week of Thanksgiving. Trying to Die in the Shadowlands and Try Not to Die in This Damned Hell. So one for the family. Shadowlands is more family friendly, still brutal, but the other one, Roberts, is for the freaks because it's pretty crazy. We still need to get that cover done. Same with the Shadowlands, but those should be done in the next week or 2. So that's going to be the Thanksgiving release. And then the very next month, right before Christmas, maybe even on Christmas Eve, we'll have 2 more books 14 and 15, Try Not to Die in Arcranium and Try Not to Die Escaping the Cult. So pretty freaking cool. Usually I don't like the holidays. Not really a holiday guy, but this is going to be awesome to be able to have 5 books. Like I don't mind putting in all this work, putting in all this time. One, because I enjoy what we're doing. I enjoy the process. I enjoy playing with words, but being able to see this, seeing that we're going to have 15 books in the series by the end of the year. So that's pretty freaking amazing that right behind it, we're going to have so many more. So in addition to Jay's, we'll be having Tournament of Mortem, like I mentioned, probably have Roswell coming out really soon. And I apologize to the other authors whose books I'm forgetting right now, but that's just how many we have. I had to turn down some authors that were asking about possibly doing a Try Not to Die or at AuthorCon. I was like, I just can't do it. I have so many because in addition, in January, I'm supposed to be bringing on like another 6 or 7. So I've already talked with those authors. So yeah, it's a lot of stuff going on. I got to make sure to not do too much right now. I feel like it's all doable. I like how it's all working out because I am still taking time to take care of myself. I've been using the hyperbaric chamber since I've been home, doing more of the sauna, starting to use the tonal machine because I haven't been doing jujitsu, but I realize I have to do something. So even if it's, I shouldn't say even if, whether it's yoga or weights or whatever, I got to be active and yeah, replace what I was getting from jiu-jitsu. Maybe I'll return, but right now the timing is not working and I just don't have the passion for it. So I think I kind of need to heal my body up a bit and then I'll go beat the shit out of it again down the road. Maybe next month, maybe the month after. Not sure, but it's all good. So, and that's the nice thing. If I stay in shape, then I should be able to do that. No problem, right? Oh, and one of the cool things when I got back from St. Louis, I got some new merchandise. So this is the old one. We don't want to see the old shirt. Here's a brand new one. I haven't put this one up yet. I want to see how it turned out, but it has the cool bullet ridden muff in the front. And then the back has 21 of the books that are going to be coming out, either out now or coming out very soon. I'll update that later. Didn't care for this material though. I was just checking it out. I had to do the all over print. So I'm going to look for something else. Oh, but then there's also the tank top that I'm wearing. And on the back, same thing with this sweatshirt. I love this sweatshirt, this hoodie. I sent this and or shirts to well, not all my authors, but many of the authors around the country, around the world. Pretty cool seeing them sporting the gear. And then this is what it has on the back. Fight, survive, repeat. Thanks to my buddy Brian Ochoa for doing all this incredible artwork. Yeah, it's pretty cool having all this stuff. It's been brought to my attention. Maybe I'm overdoing it with the whole try not to die, tattooing myself, merge everywhere, blankets. My whole house is try not to die. But fuck it. I love it. I dig the way it looks. I enjoy it. I'm happy about it. I'm proud of it. So why not fucking rep it everywhere I go? All right, guys. On that bit of narcissism, let's go out on one of my stories. Yeah, that's right. Listen to it. So this is off of Twisted Reunion. Oh, almost forgot. Trying to Die a Dark Fairy Tale. That is the book of the week. This one is not free. This one is 99 cents. Next week, we'll go back to having free books. Not sure what, but I'll probably do 2. Or maybe 1 free, 199 cents. We'll see. All right. Stay tuned and you will find out. And subscribe to my newsletter because all the links are always in there. But the short story is off of Twisted Reunion, The Infidel's Prayer. I hope you guys dig it, and I will talk to you next week. Peace.
The Infidel's Prayer. Amir signed his name to his latest decree, folded it in thirds, dipped his seal in the calf's blood, and turned his wish into law. Pleased with himself, he sat the letter at the corner of his desk and turned his attention to the cheap television in the corner of his cramped, windowless room. For 2 months, he'd been trapped here behind the gates. The Americans had gotten too close. He could no longer be seen in public, no longer walk the town square to give coins to the children or to taste the Lady Cabrera's dates or cherries. A loud knock at the door sent Amir to his feet. It was only 10 o'clock, and he had given orders not to be disturbed until lunch. He didn't hide his irritation when he asked, "Who is it?" "It is I, Your Excellency, Rahim." "What is it?" "I'm sorry to disturb you, but we have a problem." "Americans?" Rahim shook his head. "It is the prisoners." Amir opened the door. "Get in here and explain yourself." Rahim lowered his head and entered the room, his bloody hands working back and forth on a filthy handkerchief. He raised his eyes, looking more like a lamb than the bull of the man he was. "They won't bow." "What?" "I'm sorry, Your Excellency, but I cannot bend their will. They say they will not be broken." "You disappoint me, Rahim. They are but men, barely more than boys. They're not even military. They're infidel." "Yes, I understand, but they will not budge. And the crowd grows by the minute." "You can't handle it?" Rahim straightened to attention, his massive forearms flexing as he clenched his scarred fists. "I can handle it, but my approach may not be as your excellency wishes, especially with nearly the entire town bearing witness. Amir pointed to the door. Go and do as you must. I have your permission. You have my blessing. Once Rahim left the room, Amir moved to the 3 computer monitors lining the back wall. The crowd gathered around the eastern court was the largest he'd seen. They'd come to witness the young men who'd openly opposed Amir. Soon they would discover their fate. That was good. Even the most devoted follower needed a reminder. Amir admired himself in the full-length mirror. He was the image of excellence, from his perfectly creased beret to his shining black boots. To complete his outfit, Amir removed his sheathed sword from the gilded display case, attached it to his belt, and headed for the door. To hell with the Americans. These people, his people, needed to see his face. Just as he pulled open the door and stepped into the hallway, a loud cheer erupted. He glanced back at the monitors and could see nothing but the maniacal crowd jumping up and down. He hurried to his desk, took out his Browning 9mm and placed it in its holster. Amir started down the hallway and saw red footprints marking the carpet. Not only had Rahim proved to be ineffectual, he'd been careless and disrespectful, bringing the blood of infidels into Amir's home. The crowd roared again as Amir approached the large wooden doors which led to the eastern court. Then, silence. Slowly, he opened the door. Rahim rushed to Amir's side, his open knuckles dripping blood on the sand. Still nothing. Rahim used the back of his sleeve to wipe the sweat off his creased forehead. I don't know what's wrong. Amir looked at the trail of blood Rahim had dragged in from the outer gates. He said, Take me there. Rahim nodded and led Amir down the path. As they crossed through the gates, the townspeople looked down on them from both sides. A chain-link fence kept them from getting too close to Amir's greatness. The short path opened onto the eastern court, a giant circle of sand surrounded by the quiet crowd. On the far side of a statue of Amir's father, the man the people had once adored, were 3 young men. Each was tied to a stake 10 feet apart. When they'd been brought in the day before, their facial resemblance made it clear that they were brothers. Now they were unrecognizable, any familial features obliterated under Rahim's heavy hands. These men won't bow because they aren't able to, Amir said. Untie them and surely they will recognize me. Rahim shook his head. They refuse, Your Excellency. Perhaps they will reconsider if you address them. Amir wondered who should replace Rahim. Move aside and watch how it is done. Amir strode forward, stopped a few feet in front of the man on the left, the eldest and hopefully the wisest of the brothers. Loud enough for the entire crowd to hear, Amir asked, What is your name, my son? I am my father's son, the stick-thin man with the mangled face said. His smile revealed a mouthful of shattered teeth. I am Michael Marash. Amir slapped him across his cheek, the crack echoing across the court. Do you not know who I am? Michael acted as if he hadn't felt the blow. I know what you are. The same as me and my brothers. Mortal. Amir unsheathed the sword, placed its point to Michael's chin before the man could utter another sacrilegious word. You are as ignorant as you are brave, but neither will serve you in my court. Amir let the tip of the sword drag across Michael's chest, spilling new blood. Pray your brothers have more sense. The next brother, whose teeth and a bloodied piece of his ear glistened in the sand, looked Amir in the eyes, not once glancing at the sword in his hand. And what is your name? Amir asked. Zechariah. You look brighter than your brother, Amir said, even though he couldn't make out much with the purple swelling. Would you like for this to end? Very much. Good. Amir turned to the crowd. Did you hear that? This young man would like for this to end. He is a man of reason. He will bow down to me." The crowd cheered, but not nearly as loudly as they had when Rahim had been working with the brothers. "You misunderstand," Zachariah said. "I bow to no man." Amir whirled around and drove the sword through the insolent man's thigh. Zachariah's cry was drowned out by the crowd. Amir stuck his face an inch from Zachariah's. "You want to rethink that? I have all day." Zachariah shook his head, grimaced when Amir pulled the sword out and shoved it through the other thigh. Another cry. "Pathetic fools!" Amir sheathed his sword. The first two brothers groaned and wailed as Amir walked to the third man. "And you?" he said to the big-bellied brother. "What is your name?" "Hassan." Amir took the 9mm from his holster and made sure Hassan saw it. "I want you to listen closely. You can save your life and the lives of your brothers. Don't you want to?" "We already saved, sir. You can be too if—" The blast of the gun cut the sentence short. He splintered Hassan's left kneecap. "I can be saved?" Amir fired around into the other knee and then returned to Rahim, who looked as if he wanted to say something, but wisely remained quiet. Amir ordered him to ready the spears and screamed at him to hurry when Rahim hesitated. The crowd went wild as the soldiers trudged out the 6-foot-long spears and inserted them into metal holders beside each stake. When each of the glistening spears was in place, Amir raised his hand to signal for silence. Speaking to the crowd, Amir said, "I do not ask much of my people, but I will not tolerate disrespect. Still, as a kind and just ruler, I will give them one last chance." Amir then asked the brothers, "Will you bow?" Michael said, "You can hurt us now, torture us every single second for the rest of our days, but it will end. And we will be welcomed into God's arms and an eternity of bliss. So no, we will not bear false witness." Amir signaled his soldiers to proceed. He shouted to the crowd, "I cannot help those who refuse my hand." The soldiers untied Michael and his brothers from the stakes, leaving their arms bound. Michael said, "We are not trying to be disrespectful, but we cannot bow to a golden idol." "Raise them," Amir shouted. "Raise them high." 4 soldiers surrounded each of the brothers and hefted the men onto their shoulders. Speaking over the cheering crowd, Michael said, "We believe in one God." His voice was soon drowned in the cheers as the soldiers pressed them high into the air, where they hovered over the spears. The brothers prayed as one. "The Father Almighty, creator of heaven and earth." "Impale them," Amir screamed. The soldiers dropped the young men, the schlop of spears tearing through fabric and flesh as the brothers cried to their heaven. The crowd crowed their approval as the young men slowly slid down the poles. Amir was used to men screaming, but not like this, as if they were in the chorus of the damned. All they had to do was bend to him. Michael was more than halfway down the pole, only a few feet of blood-slicked steel sticking out below him. Amir stepped to Michael's feet, dangling over the ground. The skin over Michael's upper chest stretched a few inches up the spear, pointing to the sky. All 3 of the screaming brothers reached the blood-soaked sand at nearly the same moment. Zachariah's spear had ripped through the side of his neck, a fountain of red flowing on both sides of the steel. Hassan, the shortest of the 3, hadn't been so lucky, but even he continued to sing despite the spear exiting his right eye socket. The crowd stopped cheering, and the entire court went silent except for the brothers' everlasting "Ah!" As if they had planned it, the 3 men finished their scream. "Amen!" Amir turned. found Rahim standing wide-eyed next to the statue of Amir's father. "Lower the spears," Amir ordered. Rahim hurried to the switch. The gears grated beneath the ground and the spears tilted toward the statue. Each of the brothers was now positioned to show Amir's father's statue the respect it demanded. But the crowd did not cheer. As the blood pooled beneath him, Michael turned his head to the side and looked at Amir. "We are not bending for you. We are not bending for you. Only God." Rahim ran to Amir's side and whispered, "This shouldn't be, Your Excellency. These men are not natural." Amir's fury at his first-in-charge blazed in his eyes. The man was no better than a superstitious little girl. "The spears are holding them together. They will bleed out like everyone else." "No one has lasted this long," Rahim said. "They should be dead." Amir backhanded Rahim across the face, stunned the man into silence. "And they will be." To the soldiers, he yelled, "Remove the bodies and stack them here. The rest of you, bring in the wood." The crowd came alive and cheered the soldiers as they ripped each of the brothers off the spears and sat them back to back a few feet from Amir. Wheelbarrows full of wood dumped their contents in a massive circle around the men. The frenzied crowd continued by tossing branches, rags, and other items over the fence. This would be a fire like no other, an example of the fire that the irreverent infidels would spend eternity in. Michael took Amir's attention away from his people. "God forgives you." Amir didn't acknowledge the blasphemous remark, simply strode to the edge of the court. He pulled Rahim to him and said, "Douse them in gasoline." Rahim picked up the can by the entrance and walked to the brothers as branches continued to rain down. He said something to the men as he poured the liquid on them, but Amir could not hear the words over the chanting crowd. He didn't need to. Rahim had already proven what kind of man he was that day, but as long as the crowd couldn't hear it, his words didn't matter. Rahim emptied the can. Amir beckoned a soldier to bring him a lit torch. When no more liquid came out of the container, Amir tossed the torch, and the fire exploded, flames 50 feet high. The intense heat drove Amir and the crowd back from the pit. On the outskirts of the blaze, Rahim's body writhed until he was nothing but charred debris for the other soldiers to consider. A voice from above shouted, "The statue!" Amir hoped it was a mirage, a trick of the flames playing on his eyes. The face of his father's statue was melting. It looked like tears. "It's titanium," he said, wondering if the sculpture had lied. "It can't melt." But the tears continued to drip down his father's cheeks. Amir ordered his men to extinguish the fire. Buckets of water sizzled over the flames when the singing began. The song was an infidel's prayer. "Stop that!" Amir shouted at the crowd, disgusted that anyone would dare cross his decree. The flames continued to grow, and the singing grew louder. Amir turned to his nearest soldier and said, "Take all the men you need and find those who are singing. Toss them into the pit." The soldier stood staring at the fire and pointed. "From in there. They're in there." Amir pushed the confused soldier away. He shielded his face from the bright white heat. The statue was gone, a silver puddle spreading across the sand. The song continued, growing louder as 3 shapes appeared. Amir yelled to his men, "They're demons! Send them back to hell!" Most of the soldiers ran. Those who stayed threw down their weapons. Amir fired a round into the closest coward's head. "Kill them!" Amir yelled, aiming his pistol at the brothers in the flames. He fired. The round struck Michael's forehead. Amir fired again and again, emptying the gun into the flames. He threw the useless pistol at the figures and pulled his sword, waving it in front of him. Stay back, devils! Go back to the depths of hell, please!" Amir tripped and scooted backwards on the sand. "I am sorry," he said to the fire. "Forgive me, please, please." He pulled himself forward and bowed his head. He recited the infidel's prayer. Each word he had banned from his city. He prayed with all his heart and begged the one God to have mercy on his soul. When he opened his eyes, he saw Rahim's charred body before him. He saw inside the flames. The brothers weren't alive. They weren't singing. They were dead. Amir looked at the ring of soldiers, realizing how crazy he probably seemed. He wiped the tears from his face and saw his men training their weapons upon his chest.